Alina, this book is something else. She's saying that the things that, that stand out to you, the things that you want to repeat and all of these things into your life. Listen, everything
stands out.
So I break it down into portions that I can manage.
This really was transformative.
Good evening and welcome to Book Club Conversation Series 6, where Launchpad Consultancy, collaborating with VisionWorks Solutions, really are engaging professionals and entrepreneurs to read the book, The Uncommon Achiever by Mike Murdoch. I am Alina Lewis, and I am so excited to have back in studio with me Roel Rollox, Impact Strategist at VisionWorks Solutions, and Shirlyn Mitchell-Bermant of Tema International and Just Towel International. Hi, guys.
Hello. Good evening.
I am so happy to have you all back here with me. I'm very excited about it because this evening we're chatting about chapter 25 that is entitled Embrace the Correction of Other Uncommon Achievers. And I'm going to start off, as I love to do, by asking you guys, what was your big takeaway from this chapter? So Shirlyn, we're saying ladies first this evening, so I'm volunteering you. What was your big takeaway from this chapter?
It's amazing, God really has a sense of humor. I experienced something this morning and it wasn't very nice, but I experienced it and it required me to get some corrections, get some directions. And so when I saw the chapter, I said, Lord, if I hard of hearing, I am certainly going to hear you now. And so going through something that is not always pleasant, and you want to get guidance to deal with it in the best way. So when I saw God assigns deliverers, I said, God, thank you. Thank you so much, because the person that I spoke to this morning for about 40 minutes after the incident was like a deliverer, and she spoke very sternly to me and said, you have got to make some decisions. And I said, yes, what are you going to do? And so that was like, bam, and I didn't read the chapter. Yes, I think I read the chapter already. Yes, and no, I spoke with the person and then I read the chapter. So it was like, bam, bam. So I said, God, thank you. Thank you so much. It reaffirmed for me. So God always assigns deliverers, and it's not always, deliverers. So that I needed this help at this time, and God sent that person. And I'm very, very grateful. So I'm thankful for the reinforcement of God assigning deliverers and the right person at the right time to give the right counsel.
Thank you, Shirlyn. Roel, what about you? Big takeaways from the chapter?
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Shirlyn. Good evening, all those listening on whichever platform you're listening in. Always a pleasure to have you with us. For me, I guess the first thing I had to do to deal with this chapter, because I was at a little odds with Mike Murdoch this evening, right? I had to kind of restate it in my mind to speak to not just those that corrected you, but those that encouraged you, right? And that encouragement can come in different forms. Correction is one of them, right? So that's how I kind of had to reframe it for me. But every time I read that statement, Shirlyn mentioned the statement earlier about God assigning deliverers. What stuck with me is the word assigned. I couldn't get past the whole idea of assignment. And it connected with so much of what we've said for the last 25 days about intentionality. This whole idea that people come into your life for a purpose and for a reason, and some will go further to say for a season, but it's on assignment. And I think if we could capture that, then we could make the best out of the various relationships. When we understand that this wasn't just a chance meeting, this wasn't just a chance thing that this person is into my life or in my life at this particular point in time. I think if we could recognize that, then we could pay the right homage, we could pay the right respect to those persons that come into our life for all kinds of reasons. All right. And not all the time they're dressed up very nice. Sometimes they enter into our life as a challenge, but they all seek to teach us something, and most importantly, those uncommon mentors and persons who are there to really hold our hands, who are here for a little longer. If we understand that, then I think we can make the most of every time we have a conversation with them, because in many ways God is speaking through them. And God will, and if we understand that, I think we would take to heart, to honor, and be more thankful and be more ready to learn, when they are speaking. And sometimes they don't even know, they might just be doing their thing, just doing them. You understand? Just sharing, just being a friend, whatever it is. But just something that they say speaks to you in a way that goes so deep that yes, this is the word for the hour. This is what I needed to hear at this point in time. So I think it's about being more purposeful and being more intentional about the people in our lives. So right now, I guess what it encourages us to do is to kind of take stock, sit and look at our life.
Yeah.
Look at the various people in our life and try to discern those who have that special uncommon assignment. And if you can discern those persons, then you can make the best of the relationship with them. So that jumped out at me, the word assigned.
Yeah, even as you were saying that, role, the thought that came to my mind as well is the whole idea of seasons. I think one of the things I have really learned to respect as well is seasons, and with different seasons bring different purpose and people. Because a lot of times when we think about how we connect with other persons along our journey to achieve, a lot of times we tend to have this assumption that the only connections that matter are the connection that we have with the people who could maybe pull a string or open a door or something like that, or bring an opportunity or say here's a contract. But in many instances, we have all these different types of people coming into our lives, not just to open doors for business and more opportunities, but we have persons who come into our lives for the purpose of helping to shape us and frame us and help us to be molded. And that happens through both joyful experiences and challenging experiences. Because we have sometimes, people that we get in touch with or we collaborate with in a time, and it's such a beautiful experience, and we feel encouraged and we feel built up. And a lot of times we celebrate those connections, those people, and we were so happy to have them. But at the same time, there are other instances where we may have people in our lives, whether in the capacity of a mentor, a capacity of a colleague, otherwise, who they bring in correction either through what they say or the negative experience we have with them, that we're able to correct ourselves as well. And we're able to sharpen and learn from those experiences, not because it was the best experience, but because maybe the challenge in the relationship or in the experience could then serve as a tool for us to understand how to direct ourselves, for us to understand how to move forward. So I really wanted to, as you even talked about that there, Rol, I really wanted to encourage persons to consider the connections, the corrections, the relationships, the conversations, not just to value it when it's maybe someone that you perceive to be at a higher level than yourself, but the range of people that come in and out of our lives in various seasons to contribute not only to the work that we do or the business that we develop, but who we are as individuals. Because I always say what we do is an extension of who we are in many regards. And so we want to make sure that the same way we are so focused on business development, we also as well want to make sure that we are focusing on our own internal, personal, and professional development, making sure that we are developing into the kind of people we want those around us to be. That, as the cliche says, be the change that you want to see in the world. Roll is smiling. Tell me why you're smiling at me, Roll.
Well, it's something I've said before, and as you said it there, I always like to bring it into perspective that the goal of most of the things that we're doing is about improving the relationships and improving the life that we have. Business doesn't exist in and of itself. So the whole idea of being in business, or having a bank, or having a law practice, or having a government, or having a politician, is about making individual lives better. You
Yes.
understand? And sometimes we can lose sight of that because we want this product to do well. And I think this is what causes people to drift, because they lose a sense of why they're doing what they're doing, and they get so caught up in the product and the service, and sometimes they cut corners because I want this product to do well, therefore I might compromise to get something to market. There's been so much talk now about what's going on with these vaccines. Is it going through the proper process? Is it going through the proper type of testing before it comes to the public? Some pharmaceutical companies have been guilty of it because they want to bring a product to the market. But why, Alina? Why, Shirley? Why, viewer? It's because we want to make life better. And I think, particularly in what we do at Vision Works and the whole question of impact, seeks to address this concern that you can be involved in business, you can be involved as an NGO, whatever is your endeavor. But at the end of the day, we're all here to make life better. So that's what I was laughing at.
I want to piggyback off of what you just said, Roll, because in many regards, Mike Murdoch alluded to relationships and how we perceive relationships. And he spoke about it in the context of correction, in the context of mentorship, and so on. But even before we go deeper in the chapter, I want to ask both of you a question. And my question is this: how does your why, because we all just talked about the why, yeah? How does your why influence the way you build relationships? Because Raul was just talking about the importance of not just focusing on the business and the product and the marketing and these things, but you have to understand your motivation for why you're in it, because it's a driving force. So now let's take what Raul said and bring it in the context of the chapter when we look at our relationships with others. How does your why influence the way you build relationships? Open floor.
For me, I am thinking how the journey is a learning one. Even though you are doing something, you're offering something, you are learning at the same time, so that the roles that you have to play, or the roles that persons have to play in our lives, is so important to understand it. It's so important to appreciate it. And even as you all were sharing there, and the season and understanding why God has put this person in your life at this particular time, is really about learning to be able to serve better, learning to what has been placed, that assignment you have been given, being able to execute it in a way that it really brings healing, it really offers help. So that word learning is jumping out at me as you grow, as you go forward, as you develop in your assignment. So that for me is like the why, and the why is because in each stage you are able to learn, you are able to glean from what is being shared, the impartations at that particular season. And the way you learn is it will help to take you forward to the next stage. So if you are challenged by learning in the way how God presents it as well, it could hinder you. So I believe that for me, the learning is a very important thing. in your development and in the having uncommon achievers around you that are the ones to bring correction. So embracing that learning, the level of learning that they are bringing to your life is really, really important.
Thank you for sharing that, Shirley. For me, even as I think about it, I am very passionate about excellence. And here, excellence not meaning perfection, but excellence really meaning that desire to function at the level of best for whatever time and season that we're in. And so, whether I'm thinking about the work that I do in education or the work that I do in business development, I am driven by a desire to operate in a place of excellence and facilitate support from a perspective of excellence. So then, when I think about my why and how it builds relationships, really what comes to mind is that I then build relationships based on who am I connected with, that I help them to grow in a place of understanding the role of excellence in their own lives. Who do I connect with that we partner in projects that we are both passionate and intentional about doing it to the best of our ability? And so we're partners in excellence together. And who are the people that I am connecting with that are able to pour into me so that I can evolve to my next level of best? Because again, for me, it's not about being in a perfect state we reach. No, we don't reach, but we keep growing, we keep evolving. And for every stage, every level, we keep transforming to another level of better and better, or another level of excellence, another level of being able to be precise or to unpack whatever is it that we're focused on. So for me, I know that when then I think about why my driving point behind everything that I do, which is for me connected with excellence, then I build relationships, putting them in one out of those three categories. Either I'm pouring into you, so I'm encouraging you in your own journey towards excellence in whatever field you're involved in. I am partnering with you because we're building something together, or I'm connecting with you because you're pouring into me. And in my journey, that's how my why influences the way that I build and embrace relationships. Roll, what about you?
Yeah, I would, I see a common, thread here with both approaches, and I think where Shirley, that foundation that Shirley laid is, I think, critical to me as well, this whole question of learning, because I always saw life as a school, where we are students in that school, and every experience we have, whether as a husband, as a wife, as a as a mother, as a parent, you know as a as a child, we are learning, and we're always learning and growing and developing. So in other words, the persons that I connect with, the persons that come into my space, that we eventually do business together, are individuals who have a kind of similar passion. In other words, they want to be the best that they can be, and every day they seek ways to learn and to grow in those areas so that they can be of more service to the persons around them, and the service to the clientele and the persons, within the wider community, whether we locally or nationally or even internationally. So this whole idea of having growth and learning and self-development as a passion, I think, is what connects me. That's a why that connects me with people in a deeper way. So in other words, if I'm a husband and this is the role I play, I must invest in improving myself in that role. If I'm a wife, if I'm a teacher, if I'm a grandmother, if I'm a policeman, if I'm a taxi driver, it doesn't matter. I must engage in improving myself in that profession or that area of my life. If I'm a musician, if I'm a footballer, whatever it is, I should be about growth and development. So you find those persons who have just remained where they are and determined, listen, I think I've seen it all, would not be the kind of persons that I would connect in that way. So that is the kind of principle for me that has involved, that has helped me build relationships.
Anita, I wanted to
Sharing
say
that.
something.
Of
I'm
course,
sorry.
Shalin. Sure.
As Roll was speaking, what came to mind is the word pride. And yesterday, in particular, I was having a conversation with someone, and pride was one of the things that came up in the conversation, but also in my study with the Lord this morning as well. And sometimes our pride can really hinder us being able to receive counsel, correction, advice. Because, like you were saying before, Lord, sometimes we think we arrive. And one of the things I grasped this morning, how much God hates pride. It was the thing that caused Satan to get kicked out of heaven, because he felt he was all that and so much more, and wanted to take God's position. And so if we are to be uncommon achievers, we cannot afford to walk in pride and not be willing to submit or humble ourselves under counsel, under wisdom, under experiences that would have gone before us, or would have taken that path, or did something, or being able to offer advice. So I think getting pride out of the way opens us up to be able to embrace those uncommon corrections from uncommon achievers, advice, counsel. Don't let it be that hindrance. Don't let it be that hindrance for our next level. I don't need this person. I don't need to hear what this person has to say. I think I have that covered. And I think that's the way to God wants us to go.
Yes.
So that I really appreciated what you said just now there, Raul, and it triggered that. So I just wanted to shoot that in.
It's true. In fact, I believe if you're really growing and developing, one of the main things that's happened to you along the way is you discover how much you don't know.
True.
True learning and development causes you to be humble. If you're really learning, if you're really growing, you begin to understand, wow, I need people. I need to stay interconnected and interrelated. I can't just live. I'm not just an island. People have different talents and different skills and different proclivities. And I need all these people. So making connections and building relationships, to me, comes out of that. So I think you're right. I think true learning works again. It's an antidote for pride. You understand?
Yeah.
If we're really learning, right?
And this really takes us even into the next portion of what Mike Murdoch spoke about in the chapter, where he starts off by saying, no one fails alone. But if you fail, it would be because you choose to ignore those who are probably in your life to support you and those who are assigned to help you. So I want to talk about failure for a minute, guys, and I want to ask you, what lesson has failure taught you along the way? And I mean, I know that's a very broad question, but I am making it intentionally broad. So no matter what part of your garden it falls in, you could pick it up somewhere, because we all fail. We all have those. And I mean, sometimes we get cute about it and we say, I didn't fail, it was a stepping stone. And, we have all the cute things that we say. But the point is, it doesn't always work out the way we wanted it to. How we wanted it, when we wanted it. What lessons have you learned through failure? Because for me, one of the things, failure, quote unquote, and when I hear from me, when I say failure, I just mean it didn't work out the way I thought it would have, or in the way I initially planned it to be. And I have learned that for me, my biggest lesson is it's okay. And it might sound so simple, but for me, my biggest lesson is that it's okay. Just because I thought about, how it should work out, and we'll call it scenario A. Just because I thought about scenario A and I was passionate about scenario A and I put all my eggs in the basket towards scenario A and scenario didn't work, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It is a failure. It just meant it worked out in a different way. And that doesn't make me a failure. It's okay. And the reason why that is like a big lesson I think that anybody could pull is because if we get to look at when situations will work out exactly how we wanted to, and we could pull back and say it's okay, it releases us from the self-condemnation many of us go through when things don't work out the way that we planned. And it doesn't just happen in business. It happens in just about every area of our lives. It happens in, in with our kids. It happens sometimes in spousal relationships. It happens in professional interactions, projects, launching a business, expanding a new product line. It could happen just about anything. But if it is that we are able to realize that, okay, when I planned it this way, it didn't work out, it doesn't make me a failure. It's okay. It just means it didn't work out that way. But let's just look at it again and see if maybe so many things in the environment change. So maybe this is just not a good idea given the new circumstance or whatever. We're able to move on, and move on not meaning I move on and I repress the experience, but I move on embracing the experience and then taking it from there so that I could continue along my journey to make impact, to do the thing that I do. Why? Because it's okay. It's okay. And for me, that is a big takeaway from quote unquote failure, that just because a project didn't work doesn't mean I am a failure. It just means that project didn't work, but it's going to be okay. And I don't have to fall on my bum and stay down, but I'm going to get up and keep on pushing. So Shirley, what about you?
Well, Alina,
yes?
From the time you began to speak, this thing just hit in my head, Pharaoh. You all know that man called Pharaoh? And how, when I heard Pharaoh, I heard stiff neck. So Pharaoh had 10 plagues come his way, representing a nation called Egypt, high leadership. 10 plagues came your way, but you remain stiff neck. You will like stop and examine and say, well, God, this thing might be true, you know. You keep repeating. And oftentimes I have found in my life, so I'm off of Pharaoh now, I found in my life that there are some things that keep occurring. And sometimes you just don't want to stop and say, well, why is this occurring, Shirley? Examine and see, you got to be doing something wrong. And I've heard it said that a lot of times when you go through something over and over, you are just not getting the lesson. And sometimes failure comes because you're just not getting the lesson that you ought to be learning. So Shirley, come on, reevaluate. And so I went through a process after launching Just Torrents in 2006 to birthing 5 other things that I did not even cater for, didn't think, because I just really wanted to make the money, you know, but God had to get me into perspective. So I had some errors made. And so 2019, some things began to happen. And it allowed me even to this day to make such a connection today. Thank God I learned from my failures. And I recognize, surely, if you want to get a different result, you have to do it differently. Why is what the people say? You're mad. So it's not the people in the madhouse alone crazy. So get it right. So that failure for me and the reoccurrences, or you know, like when you have that sum and you have the thing going on and on and on, was for me to check myself. The reoccurring decimal, check yourself and evaluate and see how you can do things differently. And wow, it has turned around. And I'm so prepared even to start small. And that's where I've begun again with Just Talents. And taking step by step by step. And this awesome platform is adding to it. And I'm so glad for failure. Ooh, failure can turn things around if you take it the right way and not remain stiff-necked like failure.
And I want to encourage, even as we wait on, Roll is going to share with us achievers who are live with us in the comment section. You're quiet tonight, to get loud, get to typing. We want to hear from you, because I want you to tell us, what lesson have you learned from failure? So make sure you're getting in the comment section, sharing and typing, because we want to be able to hear your views as well, as we all share with each other and learn from each other. So Roll, tell me, what lessons have you learned from failures?
Wow. Everything. I mean, earlier I was talking about life, being a student of life,
Yes.
and the funny thing about this classroom of life is that, it presents the test before the lesson, and often that test ends in failure, then the lesson comes after. That's how life tends to be, that kind of teacher. But I wish there's a way we could use a different word, change this word called failure, because somehow that word masks all the lessons, all the beauty, all the principles that come with it, and it disguises a lot of potential and a lot of progress. That word, I was fortunate to fly out on a business meeting and went to another country. And when in that country, this was in Europe, you spoke about failure, they got up and they gave you a round of applause. And I was like, this is crazy, But I really feel we need to create among ourselves a group of uncommon achievers that celebrate failure in a way that people don't typically do it. But if you look at any achiever, any uncommon achiever, any ordinary achiever, you understand? Any achiever that just scraped through, it's a whole long road of failure. When you hear all these biographies, these stories about anyone who's successful, from Thomas Edison to Michael Jordan, we hear about all the baskets he scores. He's the greatest scorer, but we don't realize he's missed most of them. It's because he has tried more than but all the other persons around him. So I think that's the thing about it. I don't know if there's a word we could use to change it, but I know for me, failure has taught me so much. Failure has taught me perseverance. Failure has taught me to push for excellence, because just as Shulin mentioned earlier, you didn't get it right this time. You don't want to make the same mistake, so you try to improve the next time. So I think failure, and I think for me, I think I failed so much early in life that it proved to be a very good teacher and very beneficial. Because people will look at me now. I feel all kinds of things, from my driver's license test to going into school to, people tend not to see those things. Yeah, I remember having to go to university, and I was actually helping persons learn. And when I went to the exam, I failed. So I was going into 1 year with a lot of exams failed, and I was like, what kind of life is this? And I could list, I could write a book on it, but all those experiences have taught me perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, determination. I think all those grit, because life is tough and you need a level of grit, you understand, to hang on, to push through, to persevere. I think all those lessons came through failure, and massive failure. So I would want to encourage anyone listening is to fail fast, fail well, but fail forward, as they say. Make sure you learn from the failures. And oftentimes the mentors are there, the uncommon mentors are there in our life to point these things out. But we have to have the ear to hear what they are saying and know that oftentimes it's almost as if God is speaking through them.
I want to ask something that sometimes could be a little touchy, but I think it's a good question to ask based on what Mike Murdoch talked about. And let me tell you what Mike said. Mike Murdoch said, when God talks to you, it's often through spiritual leaders in your life. Don't ignore them. And the reason why I say it's ticklish, because along the path of growth to achievement, sometimes people tend to feel that when it comes to professionalism and entrepreneurship, that spiritual leaders don't have a role there. That spiritual leaders is for Sunday when you go to your place of worship, but not from Monday to Saturday when you're running business. But here it is in this book, the author is saying to us that on our journey towards being that uncommon achiever, the role of the spiritual leader is important. So, for the person who says, I don't see why that is so, because how can my spiritual leader tell me something to help me run my business? What are your thoughts on this? Open floor.
Oh boy, I think it goes right back to pride again. But just to say, just to take up from where Roland was sharing just now, a thought came to me. Roland, what was the last thing you said? Because I really want to go from there a bit and then go to what Alina asked. There was something you said.
I know I was talking about feeling fast,
Feeling forward.
feel forward.
Right, and you spoke about the word failure and us being able to change the whole perspective of it.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I think God is saying to us, is to change the perspective of the word failure, so that we do not see failure negative, but we see it as really what it is. I mean, yes, it started off as in the way Alina put the question, but really to take on that perspective that it's okay, as she said, and see it good, see it not to be fearful, to make a mistake. And so, again, in the multitude of counselors is wisdom. Moses was cast out of Egypt and he found himself in a foreign place, but he got a father-in-law. And he was able to listen to his father-in-law as opposed to trying to lead a whole multitude. So here it was someone that went before and was able to give some insightful information. Wise, Moses would have become burnt out after a very short period of time. So the role of leaders, those that lead us as it relates to the office, it is very, very important. Even having them pray us through business, being able to connect with divine graces upon their lives to help us as we progress is very, very important. So, and especially if their doors are open, I think it is wise as an uncommon achiever to have that connection, to be able to share with your daddy. This is what your daughter is doing. This is what your son is accomplishing. And daddy could turn around and say, yes, well done. Or, and you can work on this area. Oh, I know someone you can talk with, so on and so on. Daddy, what you think about this? And I remember I had God gave me an assignment for 2021 here to take Tama to the churches. And I was so happy that I could have gone to my spiritual father, set up and present to him. And he said, yes, this is scriptural. Yes, the body of Christ needs it, to have something systematic in place for widows and widowers, so that they can know that they are not forgotten in the assembly. And so I was able to push forward with that after going into the office of my pastor. So take advantage of it while it is available. Now we really cannot meet face to face. So still take advantage of it. So that's my contribution there.
Yeah, Rol, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know it could be a touchy subject for some, the whole question of spiritual leadership of any kind, you know. For some persons, the whole question of spiritual leadership isn't even an issue. But for those who believe, those of us who believe, who serve God and serve Christ, you know, we understand that God communicates and God works in community. right? He functions in relationship. And you always have a relationship with someone else, right? And in the context of spiritual leadership and that community, that's another assignment. And we started off talking about assignment. And if we accept that they have an assignment, then we understand that there's something that God will place, you understand, in that assignment for us. And part of our role is to draw it out, you know and it extends beyond even a spiritual leader, but there's spiritual leadership that can come in many different ways. There's a spiritual leading that a wife gives her husband, or a husband gives her wife, or friends give to each other. You understand? And if we can discern it and understand the assignment, then we can draw on it and pull it out. It's like that woman with the issue of blood who touched Christ, and it was like, some virtue was gone. We have to understand that God works in community. He works in this way, in these relationships. And if we understand that we are in a community, and I guess that's the thing, if you have an issue with your community, well, then maybe you need to address that. Because if you have an issue with your community, then it's going to affect your relationship with your spiritual leadership. But if you know this is where you've been birthed, this is where you've been placed, this is where you've been assigned, then there's a mission and a purpose that they have. And not everything is about numbers. You understand? There's guidance that a spiritual leader can give. You understand? Wherever that spiritual leader functions, at whatever level that spiritual leader functions, there is advice that they can give that can make all the difference. We know the story of Christ saying to some men, "Listen, man, just throw the net. Let's throw the net on the next side. We fishing here whole night. This doesn't make sense." You understand? And sometimes business can be like that. Only in hindsight we understand the power of it. But sometimes we have to understand that some things are just spiritually discerned, and we can't work it out in numbers. We can't work it out logically, at least right now. But we need that spiritual leadership to provide some answers or some clues, to unraveling what's good for
And
us.
I just want to compliment with what you guys have shared by saying that I have found that spiritual leadership helps you develop the fortitude that you need to continue along with your journey, because it starts with you. So if I am the core behind the platform that I am unpacking, I am pushing forward with, whether it's in career, entrepreneurship, otherwise, if I am at the core, then I need to be strong from the inside. And I remember even a couple years ago attending a leadership conference that my church facilitated. And one of the things Dr. Melody said in that conference is she said, never let your external, I'm paraphrasing here, this was some years ago, but I held on to it. Never let your external outgrow your internal. And she was talking about like the passion and the desires. So when we think about the great things we want to achieve, she had put it in the context of a weight, because it's a weight to be carried, it's a responsibility. And a lot of us, as individuals, we have these great things we want to achieve, these monumental things that we want to be known for. But are we putting in the internal work that is required to prepare ourselves, mind, emotions, character, levels of integrity, levels of everything else that we're going to need? Are we putting in the work that we need to carry the weight of the greatness that we are seeking? And so I remember in that conference when she said that, one of the concepts that I would have taken away since then is I must challenge myself before I want to grow and expand externally. I must make sure the foundation of who I am is secured internally, which also tells me that before I attempt to step out into a new level in business and in my relationships, I can't just run out and step out into the new level because the opportunity come. I must have before dealt with who I am, to make sure that when the weight of the thing that I am pursuing comes and it rests on the shoulders, metaphorically, of course, I am able and ready to handle it. Because that is how a lot of us break, because we desire the big thing, but we didn't prepare self to handle the weight of the big thing. And then we crumble and we stress and, oh God, pressure is so much. No, we have to prepare us first. And I really believe that spiritual leadership helps us to prepare the self in mind and emotions, character, integrity, so that we can grow forward. Even before we continue, though, to wind down our conversation, they say time flies when you're having fun. But even before we wind down on the convo, I really want to share a comment from one of our achievers. And we have Simone. She shares with us and she says, my strength is in communication, both written and speaking. I have had experiences where my speaking tone made persons bristle, but those instances made me feel like I had failed in representing my brand. I am thankful I was made aware. It has helped me to be much more mindful of not just my words, but my tone. And so this is a great point that Simone is making here. So thank you, Simone, so much for sharing that. There is much we could learn through and along the journey about how to tailor who we are to make sure that the impact and the type of influence we have on others is positive, well intended, and well received. So even as we wind down on our convo, Shirley, tell me, what are your closing thoughts given all that we have discussed this evening?
Excellent. I say excellent in terms of what Simone shared there as well. It caused me to reflect on even the last evening that I was on, and being yourself, and how sometimes being yourself can scare people as well, because you are so open and so bold with it, and being able to really be sensitive to others as we continue on this journey together is so very, very important. And having appreciation for the contributions that others make in our lives and showing them that we really appreciate it is so important. And it really helps to take us further. And all of tonight has taken me further again. And so I am very appreciative of those that God has placed around me. Is now in this season understanding and going forward. And I'm encouraged to know that He is able to do it for others as well, so that I can be sensitive and very open and not miss it. So I really thank God for that contribution Simone made there, and really being able to be sensitive to others as we continue on our journey, and appreciating them as well. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roel. What are your closing thoughts?
I would like to encourage individuals, certainly encourage myself as well, to take a little step back, revisit your why, revisit your purpose, take a little stock, do a little personal SWOT, examine your strengths, examine your weaknesses, look at those threats that are out there that are impacting upon the why and the purpose that you want to achieve. Do it for you personally, you understand? Then look at the persons in your life, right? Look at the persons around you, look at the persons in your space, all right? And look for that alignment. You will see that there are persons who are assigned to you to help build on your strengths, to help support you in your weak areas, to help deal with the threats that you're facing. And all of that will lead to opportunities for you to achieve the things, that uncommon dream, that uncommon purpose that you've been set to achieve. So in that way, understand that there are people there to help in this specific way, and celebrate them. If this week you can find one way to celebrate one person, take a look at these individuals and celebrate them. Call them up, tell them, I thank you. I'm thankful that, we've helped in this way. I'm thankful for a kind word. I'm thankful for, something that they would have done or said. So I would say take stock, look at the persons in your life and celebrate those persons who have been assigned to help you along your way. That'll be my words of encouragement for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roll. So this has been Book Club Conversation Series 6. As we just wind down chapter 25, with 25 chapters in, guys. Certainly, it's been a really awesome journey. We have one more week to go. So listen, if you didn't like and subscribe, make sure you do it now. If you haven't invited a friend, you have one more week remaining to tell them, hey, there's this program that happens every night at 8 o'clock, and they have one more week of convos. They have business owners and professionals and so many others that pass through. Make sure to share the word. We are here giving or sharing our journey and embracing yours as you share in the comment section. We achievers, we love having you join in. We love being here, sharing in conversation about the writings of Mike Murdock as he discusses essential principles to being and embodying the uncommon achiever. Thank you so much for being here once again, joining in the live stream. Roll and Sherlyn, thank you so very much for coming once again and joining in the convo. And until tomorrow, have a great night, guys, and stay connected, stay passionate, stay fire up doing the good work that you're doing. Have a good night.